Now, hating on Michael Bay on the internet is as original as putting a caption on a picture of a cat. And yet, here we are with a Michael Bay film. And it is not some anomaly here. It's got it all. Big, loud, explosions, slow-mo, military toy porn, little guys standing up to the government, minorities as comic relief. And none of these are exactly a problem. Except the last one, obviously. It's just that Bay's use of them in blockbuster movies, because let's at least be honest here, the films do tend to make big bucks, has led to them becoming cliches of blockbuster movies. E-Trade even took a break from making us frightened of babies to make fun of him with Michael Harbour and his upcoming film Blowed Up. Yet for all our sneers, films directed by Bay usually do very well. Aside of The Island, his films have all brought back substantial returns on investment. Now, money does not equal quality, obviously. It means I will happily sit back and watch whatever is in front of me. Sometimes you want a fast food burger, and sometimes you want a big, ridiculous action movie. There's no need to feel ashamed of that. When Criterion stunned people by announcing that they would be releasing Armageddon, the accompanying film essay by one of his instructors from film school, Janine Basinger, stated, "It is true that Armageddon is a perfect example of Bay's work. It is never confusing, never boring, and never less than a brilliant mixture of what movies are supposed to do. Tell a good story, depict characters through active events, invoke an emotional response, and entertain simply and directly without pretense." And she closes with, "Armageddon is grand, large, and set at NASA, but the story of Stamper, his daughter, and his hard-living, oil-drilling buddies is the kind of movie that has previously been smaller and tighter. This film makes these ordinary men noble, lifting their efforts up into an epic event. Here, working men are not only saving the overeducated scientists and politicians who can't do anything, but, incidentally, the entire population of the planet." Now, I'm not here to review Armageddon, obviously, but this is the reason behind the Bay formula. It has the elements for a turn-off-your-brain evening flick. It's good-looking, and it appeals to our everyman who makes a difference desire. Because we all would like to think that we could make the difference, be it the office worker whose know-how gets him pulled into a hostage rescue mission, to the laborer whose skills can do what so-called heroes can't. Or in this case, an everyday Joe who steps up when he's pulled into things beyond his expectations. It's part of the reason Zombie Apocalypse has been popular in the new millennium, or the climactic scene of Independence Day. There's no shame in enjoying a Snickers bar. There should be no shame in enjoying a popular Hollywood blockbuster. Now, having said that, if there was nothing but Snickers in your house, well, that would be a problem. No, it would be a problem, truth. The connection of science fiction, obviously a genre near and dear to my heart, with blockbusters is a problem because it's hard to get science fiction films out there that will deviate from the formula because of the expense of the films. Look at how World War Z transformed in the face of that. From a script that made some seriously ask if a zombie film could become Best Picture for its human tales within, to such an action film that they actually had to reshoot the ending to not become a ridiculous testosterone joke. Now, I don't hate World War Z, the film. I enjoyed that Snickers as much as the next person. But I do lament that we will likely never get anything more for a film than sequels. Even in an era of reboots, by the time that they would reboot this, well, zombies would probably be considered overexposed, so that would be that. We would never have it again. Part of the ire felt towards blockbusters, especially blockbusters that are from existing fan bases, is that problem. What we've been waiting for has been displaced by something that fits a predetermined formula. Trekkie saw it with the Abrams reboot 5 years ago and its sequel. And the questions that are asked of fans who feel this way are you just being uptight about this? Maybe. Yes, sometimes. Another is a comment, fans just have this sense of entitlement, like they have some kind of ownership of it. I won't presume that I speak for all of fandom, but I think I speak for quite a few when I say I don't own it. But I do own the feelings that it has created within me. The things that I loved about it, the things I hated about it, the things I was embarrassed about it. The musings and arguments and fun I had with others about it. That's what made it special. Why I might be uptight. Maybe, yes, sometimes. I'm not joining a shrilling chorus with an endless stream of profanity punctuated with nitpicks over every deviation, because, hey, that's no better than being an explosion watching drone. But if I tell you I don't like it, and why? If I feel it's dumb, and why? If I say you're missing the soul, and why? That's not entitlement. That's the part of it that I do own, what it means to me. And to hand wave that away, pretending that it's something wrong with me, that's entitlement. That's arrogance. You don't have to agree with me, and some degree of dismissiveness is probably necessary for the sake of one's sanity, but don't pretend that there's something wrong with people who are disappointed. Because however proud you are of that Snickers bar you made, well, it's no different than one cranked out at any of the other factories. So what I'm saying is, there's nothing wrong with a blockbuster and your partnership with science fiction. But the thing about that genre you might be missing is the question, what if things were different? So I ask you about the formulaic blockbuster mentality that has been fused onto science fiction. Can things sometimes be different? Because as I hope some of the films I've covered this year have shown, it can be done. You know what the worst thing in the world is? It's, well, probably something like a baby born with HIV. But after that, far, far down the list, past the stuff that actually matters, it's when a movie is made which has so much going for it and screws it up so badly. It's been given the keys to a sports car, and the first thing it did was reverse straight through the back of the garage and into a rotted septic tank. You almost have to try to fail so badly. With Transformers, I talked about the Hollywood blockbuster. I both defended it and yet asked if we could do more with its union to the science fiction genre, which seems to be permanently grafted onto it now. But I must admit one thing about this union. It has helped to ensure the relatively recent rise of the good sequel when it comes to science fiction films. Oh sure, there have been lots in the past before that. Empire Strikes Back, Terminator 2, Aliens, all good examples of that. But just looking at those films shows the common elements between them, the continuity of cast and the exploration of new ideas from something that is open to further stories. So while the big budget blockbuster has tried to broaden the appeal of films at the expense of substance to some degree, the idea that not only can this be a hit but launch a series of films means that a studio will work to ensure that the setup for a profitable sequel will be in place, that the actors will be signed on to reprise their roles, for instance. You're not going to wind up with another case of the lead being replaced by Dolph Lundgren or Treat Williams or whatever, playing completely different characters that just happen to have the same name as the beloved original. And to make the film try to deliver on the goodwill of the first. So we've had a number of films this century that went on to have equally successful sequels. X2, Spider-Man 2, The Dark Knight. I know those are superhero films, but they do serve as the perfect example of this. Film 1, that's your origin story. Film 2, everything has now been established. The audience has the idea so that you go in there to really explore the concept. Because the thing about science fiction is that it's about world building. And once you have a world, you can do stuff with it. Unlike other works like, say, comedies, you don't run the risk of belaboring the point of the successful first film. Now, the downside of that is that you have to make the film open-ended. If you don't, you run the risk of doing what happened with The Matrix. The Matrix reached a natural endpoint. The film was all about a single journey, and when that endpoint came, it basically said, the world that you know no longer exists. The thing we've established has been transformed, and a good thing. This is when everything should stop. And then they made 2 more sequels. And those sequels are universally known to suck. So much so that in some cases they actually pollute the original in some people's minds. But the problem with it was these were pointless sequels that just belabored the points of the first film. And so that can be an issue. So they say, well, why don't you find a way to make this ending a bit more open so that we can make more films later on? But you can wind up with a situation then where it's, why does it not end? This is the natural end point of this film. Why did you change it on us so that it can wind up hurting the first film artistically? It can make it a commercial success, but an artistic failure as a result. But as we're going to see with this review, that doesn't really matter much. Anyway, the point of this is that science fiction blockbusters do have an advantage when it comes to sequels because of their nature as being world building, where the fantastic can happen and many such fantastic tales can then be told. Now that is precisely why it's so amazing that Transformers Revenge of the Fallen has succeeded in being such an impressive flop. It built a world, and it ended with the establishment of an Autobot presence and a Decepticon presence and knowledge of Earth. It didn't have to worry about working about the closure of the last film or extending the plot past its natural point, because the plot ultimately is a war between two races of giant robots, and the war was hardly going to be ended by one battle. And yet, despite that, the film was, while commercially successful, a critical flop, which means it was a popular but shitty movie. The film was rushed because of the possibility of strikes, true, but that doesn't make it suck any less. It just tells you why it sucked. It was crapped out to hit a deadline because another of the downsides to science fiction being married to the summer blockbuster is you have to hit that summer deadline, regardless of whether or not your film is a piece of shit. Transformers and Revenge of the Fallen shows the difference between a mindless action film and a just plain stupid action film.